Miss Chloe Bailey, one half of Chloe times Haley, now going their separate solo routes, and this is kind of her solo debut, and people have been talking about it for multiple reasons, mostly because they're wondering why more people aren't talking about it. For being an artist that is signed to Beyonce, a lot of people have been pointing to her streaming numbers and her sales and kind of like mocking it and making fun of it because she hasn't been able to do what people expected. People are already calling it a flop because people aren't listening, people aren't talking about it, people aren't buying. And while, you know, I agree, when you have like 6 million followers on Instagram and you have the backing of Beyonce Knowles, you would expect to do a lot more in the public realm, and you'd expect to get a lot more attention. And a lot of the conversation has been around how Beyonce hasn't really helped promote her, but also like, I didn't even know this was coming out. So I don't know how many other people are in that same position. Maybe there was promotion for it that I didn't see. I'm not sure, but I don't think they did a good job of kind of building up to this release. But with all that aside, I am kind of interested to see what the album itself sounds like, because outside of the music, you know, she's been doing certain things to clearly kind of distance herself from that more kind of good girl Christian prudish aesthetic that she had coming into it, especially considering she was like an ex-Disney star. So a lot of people and a lot of those artists that kind of go through that always kind of go through this period when they want to express themselves more fully as a grown woman, and that's clearly kind of the direction that she's been heading in, musically and non-musically. So I'm very interested to kind of see what she kind of comes up with and delivers, especially when you kind of have the backing of an artist as big as Beyonce. You kind of have high expectations. Like I said, I haven't really heard much or many people speaking about the album from a music standpoint, more from a sales standpoint and a recognition and you know, not being in the zeitgeist. But I'm more interested in kind of hear where she is musically. So let's just hop right into it. Track number 2, Praying Away. I mean, like I said, she's clearly distancing herself from kind of that more clean-cut Christian good girl image that she has by opening with a kind of like clearly gospel-y choir piano backing with lyrics of her calling somebody a F-N word. You know what I mean? It is definitely a very stark contrast, and she's fully cutting the cord. I mean, yo, say what you want kind of about her direction, stylistically, aesthetically. You can't really say shit about her vocally. Like, her vocals are fucking incredible. Like, she has a amazing voice. And then you pair it with like this really clean, good backing production, and this shit just sounds good. Like, on this song especially, this just sounds good. And like I said, man, like vocally, she's just impressive, and obviously she has like that kind of church background, so it's no surprise that she sounds good, and she does with this more gospel-y production. But so far, so good. Let's go to the next track, Body You Do. I mean, while the production is catchy and has an overall kind of like dancey bop to it that I could see getting some play in the club, it's fairly generic. It was a fairly generic number. She wasn't really saying much, and I don't know. Sound like, again, a song that you might hear from anybody out there trying to kind of break into like pop in with some kind of mainstream hit. Nothing special. Let's go to the next one. I don't mind. Okay, now, like I said, the last album was very generic sounding and like ho hum, and anybody could have done like kind of like a reach. This right here, this is a bop. Like with the guitar going and everything, like, yo, this is an absolute bop. And she doesn't feel like she's like forcing anything lyrically. Like she's not like trying to be the most kind of salacious and out there. She's just singing, and this is a vibe. That one's fire. That was an absolute fire track. I don't mind. All right. So a lot of our tracks are kind of going that trend of shorter songs, and at least in lengthwise. Not a huge fan of that, but definitely seems kind of the way of the world these days. Let's go to How Does It Feel? Chris Brown. I mean, yo, this is a groove. This is a vibe. This is like classic R&B that I love. Definitely kind of like all the early 2000s when R&B was definitely at its peak. But this just fits her so well. And then Chris Brown, the two of them together, like this is definitely hitting. But also like there's a sample in this that I can't quite place, but I know I have heard this sample before. I've got to figure this out. How does it feel? I'm digging that one. Certainly has that kind of classic late 90s or 2000s kind of R&B feel to it, which I think was all said and done. That's like her lane. Like she fully owns that space vocally, and I think it just matches her vibe overall. And I hope that she kind of gives us more of that, because that was dope. But so I was looking up what was that sample. I forget what they were saying it was. All right, so they're saying that it was Dionne Warwick, You're Gonna Need Me. I want to hear it. Let's see. Oh yeah, this was it. This is the exact song I was thinking that she sampled. I was also thinking it was like, I think Fabulous also sampled this one on maybe one of his soul tapes. I'm 1000% sure about that. That was another song that I was definitely picturing in my head. Just an absolutely like classic song. And one of the best samples, I think, used in hip hop here. It's the Fabulous song that I was talking about. Soul Tape too. I was right. All right, just had to get that out. That was definitely one of my favorite samples ever in hip hop. I think it's immaculate and Fabulous. I think Usher also flipped it, and now Chlöe. So dope. I was right. Where were we? Let's go to next track, Feel Me Cry. An absolute vibe. Like, again, I think her vocals are incredibly strong. I think there's absolutely no denying that, and the production was solid, very solid. gave her plenty of room to kind of like spread herself vocally and like really put herself front and center. I think this kind of more stripped, laid back type of production is absolutely her lane, because it really allows her voice to carry the weight of the song and really put what she does best front and center. So I like this more kind of laid back, vibey R&B feel on these songs as opposed to some of her more poppy reaches. But this is dope. Let's go to Told Ya, feature Missy Elliott. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but right there, vocally, like mixed with like this kind of more upbeat, dancey production, gives me heavy Beyonce vibes. Like very much sounding and presenting herself like her mentor and signer, Beyonce. Like definitely getting heavy vibes like that. And while I did say I like her R&B kind of side more, this production is kind of a bop. That was a bop, man. Very Beyonce-esque in the best ways possible. Kind of very much in line with kind of those more dancey anthems that she does. And I feel like she kind of nailed that formula here. And you really can't go wrong with Missy Elliott, who was my GOAT female artist. So like, I think this was a bop. I think this was the absolute winner out of this album. Like, I was digging that. Go Cheatback, which we did already kind of react to, at least the music video last week. And I had some opinions about it, so but we'll listen to the audio version right here. I mean, I said in the video reaction that I did to the music video, like, this is easily one of the most toxic songs that I've heard in quite some time, especially R&B wise. Like, think you're gonna get somebody back with the Cheatback is fucking crazy. Look, I will say that the song is undeniably catchy. I love the production. Like, it's an absolute bop. It's impossible not to kind of like vibe with and rock with, but I do not condone any of the lyrics and songwriting going on here. This shit is absolutely toxic, but it's also kind of genius and makes sense to have Future on one of the most toxic songs that I've heard. If you're gonna do a song like this, you would have to get somebody like Future on here, and it kind of works. Like I said, it's an absolute bop. It's an absolute vibe. I think the production is great. I think her vocals are great as always. I just cannot condone anything that she is saying. This shit is toxic. Shorty, if you ever feeling in this position, just leave. Get into a new relationship. That's okay. Let's not kind of push this shit into the mainstream because we have enough issues. But other than that, dope song. Toxic ass lyrics, dope song. Let's get to the last song, In Pieces. Dope closing ballad. That tried and true piano ballad with her kind of singing her heart out. What more would you want from somebody who's a great vocalist? She delivered here. Overall, I think I kind of expecting to go harder on the more raunchy, salacious route, but she didn't dive too deep into that kind of Miley Cyrus hole. and she kind of stayed true to who she was as an artist, more or less. And while there were certainly moments where I was kind of head scratching and wondering, like, was this really needed? Was she going a bit too far? Was this kind of like a reach, particularly on like Cheatback and whatnot? But for the most part, it felt true to who she has kind of portrayed herself to be over the years. And I think musically she kind of let that speak for itself, and I think that she has had great production. I think her vocals were great. I think her songwriting was solid overall. I think it was just a very solid project. Why people who kind of aren't talking about it or gravitating to it more, I don't really know, but it's not a bad project, and it's definitely one that is worth more than a couple listens, and there's definitely some bright spots here. And she really is kind of bringing back that kind of classic R&B feel on a lot of the songs here, and I'm all for it. I think vocally she's as good as almost anybody else out there in the mainstream that you can think of, and there's clearly hints of like future star and brilliance here. I just hope that like this first attempt doesn't kind of like discourage her and she just comes back even harder, because she has good voice, a good taste in music, and a good kind of ear for what sounds good. Like, she just sounds good. This whole album just sounds good. Nothing like, groundbreaking. It is kind of your typical R&B / pop album, but as a first go around, like, this is a very solid effort, and I'd go back and give it another listen, and I'd be excited to kind of hear what she has more. So hopefully the kind of conversation kind of more shifts to about her musically instead of sales, because musically she's very strong, and like I said, it's worth a listen. But yeah, that's it for Chlöe Bailey and Pieces. What were your favorite songs? What weren't your favorite songs? Was there anything that you were kind of hoping to hear more from her? Where do you think she goes in the future? Do you think Beyonce needs to do more to support her? And at least public facing wise? Let us know in the comments down below.